Hello and welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. My name is Nathalie Himmelrich. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is completely self-funded, produced and edited by me, Nathalie Himmelrich. Consider making a small donation to support the podcast. Go to bit.ly/support, capital G, capital T, and podcast. I repeat, bit.ly/supportgt podcast. Thank you so much. And for more information, please visit Nathalie's website, join the podcast Instagram page, and subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates on future episodes. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Nathalie Himmelrich, and I'm your host. As we are slowly moving into June, I wanted to take some time to celebrate. On the 21st of June, 2022, I started this podcast. So it is going to be 4 years that I have been podcasting, and as part of that, I have prepared a mini-series. I think I love mini-series because it gives me sort of a topic, a span to think about it. So I want to welcome you to this very special mini-series. So as the podcast is turning 4 years old, I have been sitting with that number, letting it sink in, because when I launched this show in June 2022, I had no idea where it would take me or how many of you it would reach, how many of you would listen and continue to listen. And also, given the research that most podcasters stop after 3 to 5 episodes, I was just discovering how intense this really was and whether I could sustain it. So to mark this anniversary, I have pulled together the 10 most listened to episodes in the podcast history. And I'm doing something that I have never done before. I'm going to go back into each one, reintroducing the guest to you, summarizing what we talked about, and reflecting on why I think that conversation resonated the way it did. I would love to hear what you think, why it might resonate. So we're going to count down from 10 to 1. Let's start. So this is the final episode of the Top 10 mini-series. We have arrived at number 1. And I want to take a moment before I tell you who it is, because this has been a remarkable journey to make. Going back through 10 conversations, rereading the show notes, sitting with what each of these guests brought, it has reminded me of why I started this podcast in the first place, and of how much this community has given me in return. So, number 1 is episode 4. And my guest is or was Turiya Hanover. So Turiya takes 2 places in the list of the number 10s. So if you have been with this podcast for any length of time, you know Turiya. She has appeared 3 times so far, and probably not the last time. Episode 4, 26 and 64. Each conversation has been different. Each one has gone somewhere that the previous one did not. But it is episode 4, the 4th episode I ever recorded, that has remained across 4 years and more than 180 episodes, the most listened to conversation in this podcast history. I have introduced Turiya before. I will do it again. She's the co-founder of the Path Retreats and the transformational process Path of Love, which she developed with Raffia Morgan. She also co-leads the 1-year holistic counsel training for therapists called Working with People, School of Counseling. Her training spans over 5 decades and encompasses an extraordinary range of modalities: Gestalt, bioenergetics, psychodrama, family therapy, NLP, hypnosis, somatic experiencing, ego psychology, family constellation, Enneagram, astrology, and essence work. And she has been a professional course leader since 1973. But it is not her credentials that bring people to this episode. It is her losses and what she has found inside them. In 1981, Turiya's husband, Welf from Hanover, died suddenly and unexpectedly at the age of 33 at the Osho ashram. He was young. The death was without warning. And in the 1980s, the understanding of shock and trauma was far less developed than it is today, which meant Turiya navigated the loss largely without the framework that we now have. It became a turning point not only in her personal life, but in her entire approach to working with people. Then just 6 months before we recorded episode 4, Turiya lost her most beloved partner Maja, the second profound loss. And it was in the immediate rawness of that grief that she came to this conversation. In this conversation, Turiya moved through both losses with a quality of presence that I find almost impossible to describe. She was not looking back at grief from a safe distance. She was inside it freshly, acutely, and yet she was able to bring something she had learned over 4 decades of living with loss and working with others through theirs. She spoke about the loss of Welf, the shock of it, the lack of support and understanding available in the 1980s, and the long journey of finding a relationship to death that was not defined by fear or avoidance. And she spoke about Maja, about what it was like to lose a beloved partner for the second time in her life, and what emerged in that grief that she had not encountered before. What emerged was this. One night, in the middle of her grief for Maja, a message came to Turiya, and the message was, "Love is all." She describes it as a feeling of such power and clarity that it changed her relationship to the loss itself. Love, she understood, is the bond that overcomes separation. The physical body is gone, but the heart and the love are there. They do not go with the body. They remain. And in that understanding, not as a comfort, but as a lived truth, something shifted. We also explored Turiya's relationship to death itself, her ongoing inquiry into what it means to befriend death rather than fear it. She shared the Carlos Castañeda's quote that has accompanied her. "Death is our eternal companion. It is always to our left, an arm's length behind us. Death is the only wise advisor that a warrior has. It is not a morbid philosophy. It is a philosophy of full aliveness, of living more completely because of the impermanence of everything is not denied." This episode was really special to me because of the recentness of the loss and of the close bond that I have with Turiya over all the time that I joined her training and her courses. I truly honor her as a teacher, as a wise woman, and so what she says has a depth of meaning to me that is beyond what I can explain. It doesn't surprise me that it's one of the most listened to episodes, not just this one, but the others too, because people know that when Turiya speaks, there is more to it than just the words. I have thought many times about why this episode sits at number 1, and I think the answer is both simple and profound. Turiya brought everything. She brought her decades of knowledge and her freshness, her wound in the same conversation. She brought a philosophy of death that is unflinching and a heart that was wide open. She brought grief that was real and present, and she brought from inside that grief a message that listeners needed to hear, that love does not end at death, that separation is not the last word. In 4 years of this podcast, I have spoken with many extraordinary people, but there is something about this conversation, something about the combination of Turiya's depth, her rawness, and the moment in her life at which we recorded it that has never quite been replicated. It is the most listened to episode not because it was polished or perfectly produced. It couldn't have been at this big time. But it is the most listened to episode because it is true, and people can feel that. If you are new here or you have never listened to episode 4, please go back and do so. Let it make its time. And if you have listened before, perhaps more than once, so many have told me that they listen to certain episodes more than once, I think you'll find something new in it. Turiya's words have that quality. They open further the more life you bring to them. So that is our top 10. 10 conversations, 10 guests, with some of them double like Turiya. 4 years of this podcast distilled into episodes that reached you most deeply. Building this series has been one of the most meaningful things I have done in the 4 years of this show. Going back through this conversation reminded me of what this podcast is for. Not just to inform, not just to support, but to accompany you. To sit alongside you in whatever you are carrying and offer you the voices of people who have been there and came through it. The next episode will be the anniversary episode, episode 200. I want to honor not just those 10, but all of my guests. So come back and listen to the anniversary episode. And as always, the full archive of podcasts is at nathaliehimmelrich.com. Every episode is there. And wherever you are in your grief and your trauma, I hope you find what you need. And do me a favor. Please rate this podcast, write a review, make it possible that other people who need it can find it. Share it with someone in need. This is what you can do for someone that truly needs to hear it. Thank you. Which one was your favorite episode? I would love to hear from you. In the show notes, there's a button that says send a text. I'll read every one of your messages. Take care. Until next time. Thanks for listening to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. If you'd like to be updated on future episodes, please subscribe to my newsletter on nathaliehimmelrich.com. If you need grief support, please contact me for a 30 minutes free discovery session. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is produced and edited by me, Nathalie Himmelrich. To support this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember to keep breathing. I promise it will get easier.